If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the BCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description. Welcome, everybody. We have Nicole Stewart with us again today, and this is a hot button issue for a lot of people, including me. And we all have different tools for different jobs. And we want to make sure as we're operating our companies that we're leading our business in the right direction, that we're doing things at the right time with the right people, with the right systems and applications. And we want to make sure that we're staying on course and moving toward our strategic objective at all times. And I say this all the time, but a consultant, a lawyer, a financial person, a tech guy, I'm a consultant too, right? We're not parachute. We should be coming into your business to augment the already existing systems. We should be there to help you move forward faster, not to put out a gigantic dumpster fire. And you want to make sure that you at least have your overall strategy planned out and that you're moving in the right direction so that when you bring a consultant in, they know what that direction is and they can help you continue to move that way. And Nicole Stewart is one of the good ones. She's one of the ones that we know comes in and works with clients and doesn't jump in and say, oh, here, just send me $10,000 and I'll see what I can do for you. This is not the model that's appropriate for any ABA company that I've ever seen. And I think it's important that we highlight the strengths of bringing in subject matter experts to your business, how to do it, when to do it, how to talk to those people and select them. And really appreciate Nicole Stewart coming in once again to share her time and her expertise with us. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this originated, we decided to do this. I think Josh and I were having a conversation on a Facebook post. I think that's where it started. And Josh was like, don't get a consultant to someone. And I was like, but I'm a consultant. And I think you guys like me.
And we are too.
Yeah. And I was like, but we can't just say no consultants. I think the concern is that there's a lot of predatory consultants and there's a lot of people, I think also often what happens in the ABA field is it's a lot of the blind leading the blind and a lot of people who think they know what they're supposed to be doing, but don't, or who try to expand their scope. I think there's just like a lot, there's predatory and then there's also people who maybe mean well, but they're outside of their scope or they're not sure what they're doing or they're trying to be too helpful. And there's just so many reasons why there's so many bad experiences with consultants. There's so many reasons why Josh is like, no, don't get a consultant because like for a lot of things, because so much can go wrong with the wrong consultant.
And that came from me hearing so many horror stories. And I got frustrated because people get on the group. There's one person in the group that wanted to post, hey, I have $250,000. I want to start my ABA business. I'm like, don't post that.
Oh God, don't post that.
Yeah. And then
it was like 11 o'clock at night. Josh called me. Is that the one you're talking about? And it was somebody said, I think it was $230,000 was the exact number, 270 or something like that.
God.
Yeah.
And Josh is like, yeah, I have this post in here. I haven't approved it. I'm like, dude, we can't allow her to post that. Her like flies.
I told her, I was like, you can post that if you want, but I strongly recommend not posting that because you're just going to have everybody going in the comments trying to get your money. And one thing that I think it might have been you that pointed it out, like at that time when I was in the comments, like saying, don't hire a consultant, it was because I had heard like my 5th story that week about somebody being ripped off or at least feeling like they got ripped off. And I think it might've been you or one of the other consultants that we talked to that pointed out that like, it could also be that it was a good consultant and they just weren't ready to hire a consultant and they had this mess. And then they came in and cleaned up the mess. And then after they spent all the money and had the mess cleaned up, they really weren't any further ahead. And they felt like it was a waste of money because it wasn't anything they couldn't have done themselves with Google or ChatGPT or something like that.
Yeah.
Like cleaning up the mess first is really important too. So they don't feel like they got ripped off by what would have otherwise been a good consultant.
And that's what my problem with the consulting relationship is it's half and half. It's not just the consultant. It's not just the business owner. It's the business owner not having if you hire a mechanic to tune your car, you have to have a car first. The thing has to exist.
True. Yeah.
If you hire a mechanic and you say, hey, can you fix my car? It doesn't exist. What am I supposed to do with this? You've got a pile of parts here. I'm not a car manufacturer. I'm a mechanic. I'm supposed to fix things that exist. And a lot of times the business owner will bring in a consultant. They don't really have a business. They just have a job and a bunch of people running around that are helping them with their job. And there's no real business or structure or systems, not to pound on that drum continuously. But if you don't have that stuff in place, there's nothing to look at. And I hear the stories about the consultant going in and sitting with the billing person for 2 weeks and getting that billing person trained up. And then there's this, oh, surprise, 6 months later, the billing person quits. Now what? Now you've just invested this money. You had a good consultant who was actually helpful, who came in and trained that billing person and got them into a position that was, they're going to do a better job at the billing and they've really got a handle on it. They've been with you for 10 years. But I've got one story where they were almost like business partners and together forever. Judy was the clinical director who handled everything, but Judy's a single mom. Her son gets into the Air Force Academy. She's in Texas. Her son's going to Colorado Springs. That's her only son, single mom. Hey, guess what? I'm out. I'm moving to Colorado Springs to be next to the school. So like that person where all that consulting and all that education, all that training went into walks out the door and there goes half your business. That's the real problem that I see where we're in this cycle of hiring the right person. Or put out a blog post article. Hiring is not going to fix it. You're not going to fix this by hiring anybody, an employee, bring in your brother to help you with finances. None of that stuff is going to fix anything unless you have a structure and systems and documentation. When that consultant comes in, they shouldn't have to come in and sit next to your billing person for 2 weeks. You should be able to just share the documentation that you have for your billing system and what you're doing, and they can look at it from anywhere. The billing consultant that I know, she'll look at your documentation and in about 10 minutes, she'll tell you what's wrong with your billing. And that's a $500 problem, not a $10,000 problem in most cases. And that's the situation surrounding the hiring of an employee or a consultant is usually wrong. And I was on the phone yesterday with the BCBA up north, like kind of Midwest. And this is what inspired the video that I put out yesterday. Like 6 Teams calls with BCBA owners, ABA owners. And I can tell immediately who's been through our foundation course and who has not, because the questions are totally different. It's a totally different mindset or perspective, I guess. I hate the word mindset. The ones who haven't started yet are going, I'm really busy. Who should I hire? Questions that either are so stratospheric where it's not even a thing that you should even be thinking about yet, or so down on the ground that you should be beyond this already if you've been operating for 2 years. And the people that are in the program, they're asking questions like, all right, so we've got our structure built out and we're looking at this lead BT position and we want to learn a little bit more about what responsibilities between the BCBA and the RBTs that we have out there. How can we manage this position where it's not too much responsibility and stuff? Like they're zooming in on things like that. It's just a wide gap. And so I know we're doing the right thing because those are the things that they're focused on now. You're not prepared to hire until the business tells you. And if you don't have a business system in place that is able to give you the KPIs and really show you like, hey, I need to hire somebody here. Like your business talking to you saying, hey, we need somebody in this area because this is getting neglected. You're the CEO, you're wearing this hat right now, but you're doing a crappy job because you don't have enough time to commit to it. Let's work on this. So that's when you can start to look at, okay, do I bring a consultant in to optimize this system and make it easier for me to run and improve my systems? Or is it as good as it's going to get and I need to hire somebody to come in and take this over? Or do I need to outsource this and say, hey, I have my billing system. It's all set up. This is what I expect for my KPIs. This is what I want our gross collection rate to be, at least, because this is what I'm doing. If you're a billing company, you should do this or better. These are my expectations. I can outsource it. I can hire somebody to do it. Or if I can't figure out how to automate it or optimize it, bring in a consultant to work on that. If you don't have a thing that exists, it's very difficult to get any lasting results from it. So Sorry, that's
Yes.
my rant.
No, I totally agree. And I think to go to your car analogy, almost exactly a year ago, I was in like what I felt was a minor car accident, but a minor car accident that totaled my car. And so I suddenly was like, oh, I have to buy a new car. And I'd been planning. I knew because my car was 10 years old. So I was like, I'm going to get a new car at some point in the next 2 to 3 years. So I already started looking a little bit, but I was like, oh, I have a week. I got to decide in a week what I'm getting, because the rental car, you only get the rental car for so long. It's like a super quick process. But you have to know, I have 2 kids. They do baseball. I need a trunk that holds a certain amount of stuff. My mom, I went car shopping and I kept being like, how many baseball bags fit in the car? My mom was like, they think you mean body bags. I'm like, please stop asking people how many baseball bags fit in the car. I was like, I'm sorry. I've never been car shopping before. It was like a whole experience. And so you have to know what you want in a car. Do I need it to be affordable? My old car I got really lucky and had a heated steering wheel. And I was like, I need a heated steering wheel. I can never feel a cold steering wheel again. I feel really spoiled and really bratty because I care about nothing else. But that steering wheel has to be warm. I need no other bells and whistles except a warm steering wheel. I ended up getting an electric car, but it was a whole process of I have to know exactly what I want and what I am looking for in order to pick the car that I want. And I feel like it's the same with getting a consultant, because you could be like, oh, that person helps with billing. Come on, help me with billing. But if you don't know what your billing problem is, you don't know what you're bringing them on to solve. If you don't know why you're choosing that person, other than, oh, they sound smart and they sound like they know what they're doing, you have to like really have your problem clearly identified and like your need clearly identified to pick the right choice for you. And I will say, like, my car is mostly the right choice for me. I did a lot of work to find the right car. I test drove like 100 cars.
It's funny. I'm an aviation guy, right? I have
Yeah.
a couple airplanes. I like to fly. That's like my old guy thing, right? So I'm on all these Facebook groups with a bunch of other dull old men who like to fly airplanes. And one of the common questions is, hey, what's the best airplane to buy? People that are new, that are getting into it. And I love like the most common question, because it's aviation and then a lot of these guys are ex-military and whatever, but the most common question is the same question I asked aviation owners, which is, what's your mission? Because if you've got a house in the Bahamas and there's no airport nearby, you're going to need a seaplane. Or if you're going to be flying to your house in the south of France, you're going to need like a G650 or something to have. And you're going to go buy a big $60 million jet, right? Yeah. What's your budget? What is your mission? Like, where are you going to go fly? I've got a little puddle jumper with a little propeller on the front, and we hop around Florida. I don't need to go to 30,000 feet or fly across the Atlantic Ocean, right? So that's what your strategic objective is. What is your destination? Where are you going?
Yeah.
What is your mission along the way? How fast do you want to get there? How prepared are you to operate? Can you have a little puddle jumper like Derek with a little fan on the front? Or are you looking for a twin engine jet? What is your plan going to be?
Yeah.
And I think the what's your mission question gets missed a lot. And even when the mission does exist, it's problematic when there's no plan after that, right? This is our mission: quality care, helping that specific group of people that we're here for, early intervention or hearing impaired or speech delayed, like those specific things that are really our passion and our heart. So we know what our mission is, then what does it take to get to where we want to go? And where are we?
What's our map? So let's get into it. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about me, because I would like to know who people are learning from. And then we're going to talk about types of consultants. We're going to talk about how you determine the need, the fit, how you determine the appropriateness of who you're deciding to hire, how you interview, all that fun stuff. How you measure success with a consultant. It's not just, okay, here, I'm going to pay you money and hope that things work out. Like, how do you actually make sure things are working out? And then we're going to talk about contracts, agreements, and legalities. I'm not going to give a sample contract, but to some things that you want to make sure that are included in a sample contract and what that's going to look like. A good consultant should come with their own contract, but you want to make sure that you are coming to the table with your business in mind, so that you are acting in the best interest of your company and the development of your company. And I think, like what we've been talking about already, everything is aligned to your mission and to your values and to your goals. And so your contract and everything else every single piece of this should reflect what you're trying to do for your business. And the big red flag of it all is if at any point it doesn't, then that is not the right fit for you. That is the biggest red flag. If your intuition is, this is not what my business needs, or this is not working, or this is not for me, then it's probably not the right fit. Trust your gut. Okay. So before we get started, talk about all that fun stuff, a little bit about me. So I am a mom to 2 boys. I always like to lead with that because it is probably my most important role. I also got 2 cats. This one is my little love bug. I live in New Jersey. I have also lived in New York and Massachusetts. I am a certified special education teacher and I'm a board certified behavior analyst. So I have a pretty diverse training background, but I've been in the field for almost 20 years. So also a lot of my training was done, my initial graduate school and everything was done in an era where ABA, the whole ABA landscape looked very different. And so there's been a lot of on-the-job training. There's been a lot of just experiencing the ABA field as it has evolved, which has also afforded me the opportunities to work. I think I've worked in almost every single type of setting except for a hospital setting, let's say. I've worked in homes and schools and clinics and private practice. I do a little bit of everything. And now I have part of my business is running a private practice where I work directly with clients and I provide low dosage ABA. So I work with clients who have ADHD and things like that. And then I also do consulting primarily for startups trying to get their clinical stuff on the ground. Just to talk about my consulting. As a consultant, I try to have a really defined scope of practice because I'm not coming in, I can't tell you how to do billing. I only do out of network insurance. So I'm not going to be giving you training or systems on how to navigate billing and coding. I can give you systems on how to have super bills or how to do authorizations as an out of network provider, but that's not really what I focus on. It's like I can do those things, but it's not my focus. My focus is on establishing clinical practices that have high clinical standards. And that's what I come in to consult on. And so when people ask me to do other things, as a consultant, the right thing to do is to say, no, that's outside of my scope. And I often think that a lot of consultants can do a lot of different things. And so they tend to be eager to be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help you with that. And it gets a little dicey. And we're going to talk about why. The other thing that I do in terms of consulting is I co-own a business called Supervision Reimagined, and we consult on staff training and BCBA supervision systems, among many other things that we do. And so helping companies elevate their staff training practices and their BCBA supervision so that we are promoting more effective fieldwork practices. And so that our BCBAs, for anybody who is a BCBA, we want to make sure that people are being trained to become BCBAs and that they're ready to both do the job they currently have and take over the job that they will have once they become certified. And then I also teach at Hunter College, and I'm also on the board of NJABA and the Association for Science and Autism Treatment. So I keep myself pretty busy. Okay, we're going to skip that. Okay. Let's talk about types of consultants. I personally divide consultants into two different things that you're looking for. So you might have someone that is project-based, and I think of that as more like a contractor. You want a bathroom renovated in your house, you hire someone to renovate your bathroom, do it, get out, be done. You decide that you want to accept, I think there's somebody out there who does Central Reach consulting and helps people get started on Central Reach, helps people create a system for Central Reach. You hire them, they get you started on Central Reach, they give you a system, they give you training modules, they do it, they're done, they get out, and it's over. That's the type of consultant, like they should have an established process. And you might see project-based, like whether it's, okay, you're going to help me open a new center. You're going to help me sell my center. You're going to help me it is a specific, clear objective and outcome. And then there are consultants, which is more where I fall in, that are more mentorship, where they're teaching you or an employee and they're creating systems on how to execute a portion of your job or a portion of somebody else's job. And to Derek's point of if you have somebody who's coming in from like a mentorship perspective and they only train the billing person and then the billing person leaves and they haven't executed systems so that the next billing person can come in and learn all of that faster, it's not that effective of a mentorship because they should also be teaching you how to train a billing person. They should also be teaching you what all those systems are or building in those redundancies. So they say, okay, these are your billing practices. And now here is the training and the setup for your billing practices. And there should also be a goal with any type of consultant. There should be a goal for shaping and fading. So they're shaping it so that your business can run without you. And I think like me as a practitioner, my goal is that everybody that I'm working with can eventually operate without me. And I think for me personally, that philosophy came from when I was pregnant with my first son and I was a classroom teacher and I was going on maternity leave. And I was like, oh, my classroom's going to have to run without me. My students are going to be without me. And so I need to be creating systems that can run without me. And so I spent like the last 4 months of my pregnancy, because he was born like literally, I don't know, less than 24 hours after my last day of work. I spent the last 4 months of my pregnancy trying to get a system in place so that everything runs without me. And so that's always my goal as a consultant, that I'm not needed for that. And my goal as a practitioner, I'm not needed forever. There's a next step. Sorry, the cat's really eager to participate. Let's see. So you might have consultants that are clinical, you might have people who are operations, people who are helping you with growth, and there might be some specialists. So just like to go over a few different types of specialists, you might have people who are marketing and branding, organizational behavior management, supervision systems, billing and authorizations, data security, feeding or toileting, things like that, severe problem behavior, trauma-informed ABA. I know that I've consulted with people either in solo practices or who have very small practices on multidisciplinary collaboration or on multiple diagnoses or ADHD, like specific areas where they're like, we don't have any training in place and we get a lot of clients who have this diagnosis. Give us training so that our staff are equipped to help with this. And I'll consult for a short time to get their BCBAs up to the grade. But again, like if those BCBAs quit, there needs to be a redundancy in, or if those BCBAs quit or no longer with the organization, what are you doing with the new BCBAs? Am I coming in and training them again? Or do you have systems in place so that they can access what I've already consulted on and provided to your to your new staff? Let's talk a little bit about how you determine the need and fit. There's so many different types of consultants, but the purpose of this slide was just looking at, if you're watching this, take a minute, do a quick Google search. I think like when you do this, let's say you're like, I know I need an OBM consultant, and you Google ABA consultant plus OBM, right? You're going to get a crazy Google search. You're going to get like the top people, and you're going to get like, how do I know who I need? How do I know if they're appropriate? How do you know based on like people's websites? How do you know that this person is the right fit? How do I know that this is who I need? Because I also think if I Google just OBM and I say, oh, I need somebody who's an OBM, they might be focused on one type of supervision or one type of organizational behavior management, and you're actually looking for it to be implemented in a different way. Or you already have a training director and you're looking for the training director to be properly supported, or you have no staff training protocols in place and you're looking for somebody who can establish staff systems and performance improvement plans and all of those pieces. Maybe you're looking for something that's in depth versus looking for mentorship. So you got to figure that out, and you have to know what you are looking for and then how you're going to ask the right questions to get what you're looking for. So we're going to determine our need and our fit. So why and who? We're looking at our company goals. So what are the goals of your company? And Derek talked about this earlier, is you have to know the voice of your company. You have to know what you want from your company, what your goals are for your company. You also want to know what are your current pain points. What are the struggles that are going through your company right now? What's happening that isn't working? Why do you think you need a consultant? Like, why are you suddenly, what if I had some billing consultant who was going to help me with this? I worked with a company who hired like an HR kind of like staff training onboarding consulting, but they weren't hiring new staff. They were like, I want to be prepared so when I do hire new staff, I have processes in place. So they were paying somebody monthly to do nothing. That wasn't a current pain point. They weren't ready to bring on new staff. What the actual issue was, this company, was that they didn't need that. They do need an onboarding process, and they want to make sure they're complying with all these pieces, but they weren't bringing on staff yet. They were still in the development phase. And so what they actually needed was systems development of how, like they only had a couple clients. They were like, we already have our staff in place. We need to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We need to have a solid clinical foundation before we add staff and before we grow. And then we could worry about the onboarding training. So I coach them until maybe we need to actually be not paying for that right now. So that you're working on your clinical development. That wasn't a current pain point. That wasn't an actual problem yet. And they weren't interested in dealing with it either. They were like, we're just paying this person and I'm doing nothing with the information because I don't need it right now. And then you want to think about what's outside of my scope, what's outside of my competence, where do I need additional training and mentorship? Because you might bring a consultant on who's mentoring you and helping you. And I know in this group, and Derek or Josh, you guys could probably speak more to this. In this group, I see in the Facebook group, a lot of people who are just BCBAs who are just starting a business, who maybe don't have a business background, or who are just starting something and they need more training. And I was there too. I think I'm very lucky My dad owns his own business. My dad's also an accountant. So I think the financial stuff, I had a lot of my own network for mentorship. I have my own accountant who mentored me in a lot of things. I feel like I have a network of mentorship, but I see people ask questions and I'm like, oh, you need somebody who's teaching you this. You need a teacher to learn this.
Yeah. And you shouldn't expect yourself to know everything. There's plenty to learn out there in the world, right?
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be something where, and I think it's difficult because the BCBAs are all extremely educated, extremely intelligent people. And a lot of the questions that pop up on the group are anonymous. It's almost like, I believe when I ask this, I'm going to hide my name.
It's true.
And in my view, I wouldn't expect you to know how to dock a cruise ship. Like why it's completely outside of the realm of your education and your background. Like you don't know how to dock a cruise ship, like big deal. Come up and train with the captain for a few months and you'll start to learn the basics of how to dock a cruise ship, right? Anything that's out there there's a small percentage of BCBAs who go into business. So it doesn't make any sense to teach them all of the business skills and leadership and all that stuff. And a bad plan is better than no plan. And if you take a run at something that you don't know about, and this is what we get into in our structure course, which is just build it to the best of your ability. Go all the way through and put the basics in there, and we're getting into the billing and the processes for finance, and then the process, which is billing, and you're going to have SOPs and checklists and cadences and KPIs. Just put in there to the best of your ability what you think it should be, right? And then start using it, and it's going to break. It's going to give you bad feedback, and you're going to adjust it a little bit, and then adjust a little bit more. And over time, it will improve just with trial and error. And it's a lot less expensive to do it that way than it is to just do the trial and error without having the system that can be adjusted, because it's impossible to go back and say, all right, wait a minute, what were we doing 6 months ago? Because that seemed to be working better than it is now. We've made this diversion or this change to the way we were doing things. We did it for 6 months. Things have not improved. They've gotten worse. So maybe instead of adjusting everything 45 degrees to the right, we maybe should have gone 30 degrees to the left. Now, where were we? Like, where were we 6 months ago? You need to be able to go back to that and make adjustments from there. When you try something, it doesn't work, you go back. Trial and error is necessary to some extent in any business, in any system, and different things work for different businesses. There is no magic wand, and there is no person who can just walk in and say, yes, this is the way to do it, and I'm going to wave my magic wand over your business and just fix everything. You have to have your documentation straight and actually live by it. Work by that documentation, test it. Failure is part of success. I love Seska Salazar said that on one of our live streams the other day. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Yeah. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be failing. We're supposed to be micro failing in our little systems and processes, because when you know what direction not to go, you can check it off the list and then move on to something else, move away from that failure point, right? And I think if you're not in a position to do that, you're not ready yet. And you can build all of that yourself. A little, especially now with AI, for crying out loud, like you can build a pretty decent common sense system in an area that you're really not familiar with. And you can talk to a few people, you can do a little bit of research online. You can go back through the video feed that we have on YouTube at this point and get a lot of great advice from Nicole, from a lot of different people. So you can zoom in on a few of these things and at least get something to aim at. It doesn't have to be exact. And go for the baseline operations across the board and you're not trying to build a Ferrari, right? For a while, it's going to be a bicycle at best, but it's better than crawling. Yeah. Build your little rusty bicycle, use what you've got, and then over time, keep evolving it and adding to it and making it better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of like mentorship and things like that's where I tend to come in, is I feel like it's funny, I'm more of like a motivational mentor. It's not my job to get you to do what I want your business to be. It's my job to help you figure out what your mission and your vision is. And so I tend to be in those early stages. You spoke of like before you hire a consultant, I would be, it's almost like an executive coach, which I have done for executives with ADHD. I have done some executive coaching, but it's almost more like a coach for a business owner more than a consultant of helping empower business owners to do all of those things that you're speaking of. Because I think there are people who are like me who just take the initiative and figure it out on their own. And then I think there's people who learn by having somebody who holds them accountable, by somebody who's giving them maybe direction setting, who's telling them like where to, like they need the initial steps to be not necessarily set out. I'm not like, I would never be like, you're going to start a preschool and this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to be like, what do you want to do? What is your business? Like, what lights you up?
And I think because, and it's not just the high level of education and intelligence that is problematic with getting the ABA owners to do their thing and push forward and ask for help when they need it in a proper way. It's also, they also have hearts. And that's one of the things I love about working with BCBAs is that they love the clients they're helping. And it's a little intimidating when you have this idea one day, hey, listen, I'm working for this big box company. The clinical quality is terrible. I want to go out and start on my own and provide better care and do this. And then 2 years in, you've got 20 employees. They're all dependent on you for their livelihood. If you fail, you've got 20 families that you're putting in financial trouble. Right. That's pressure. You've got 60, 70 clients that those people are helping. Yeah. And now now if you fail, your business goes under, and now all of those people are going to be sitting on wait lists somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. That's a ton of pressure. Right. And I think a lot of business owners in this field look at it and go, oh my God, I don't want to screw this up. I need somebody to come in here. I need like a lifeguard almost, right? I need somebody next to me that can tell me like, are you doing this right? Or are you doing this wrong? But often they're just as lost as you are.
I know. That's the thing.
And like you said, the blind leading the blind, or we had one, you mentioned the HR consultant. We had a company who hired an HR consultant, and then they fixed some things with the HR issues. And it was more like employee engagement and turnover and drama between employees and that kind of stuff, really establishing their HR processes, procedures. And then they had billing issues that cost like a bottleneck of like $750,000. It was a big deal. And they were stuck. So they were like, oh, this Mike took care of us on the HR stuff. Let's go back to him. And he completely screwed everything up financially.
Oh, I'm sure, because he's not a billing person.
And he's not a billing person. He's not a finance person. And this is how bad it was.
Yeah.
He actually signed them up for one of those MCA hard money lender loans where they loan you the money and it's zero interest, but the fees are wild. It's 40% interest.
It's like very predatory.
You should just use your American Express card. That would have been better. At least you would have gotten some points. You could have flown your family. One of the things that I love about Nicole is that you will not step out of your lane.
Yeah.
You say, this is out of my scope. I know I've helped you in that area, but I am not your everything magic wand person. I got friends. We talk to people all the time, and about 60% of the problems that we come across, we're not the ones to help solve that, but we have friends. Like we have resources who we know we've actually seen them help other people in this area before. Call this person.
Yeah. And I think that I feel like it's so important because I think the wrong person addressing the right problem is going to blow up. And I think like on this slide, looking at the budget piece too, is if you pay for that example of the $750,000, if you pay the right company $10,000 to unlock that $750,000, that is a great return on your investment.
Great investment.
But if you pay a company $1,000 and it does nothing for that, you wasted $1,000. And so I just think like when you look at your budget too, you have to look at, you can't just say, oh, I have an extra $10,000 or I have $30,000 that I can spend to make my business better. You also have to look at, if I spend this $30,000, what is it going to do? Is it going to, because I think I have a graph that we shared in a previous one of these where it's talking about the investment in staff training. And that the idea that if you invest in staff training, you're going to have lower rates of turnover. So then you're going to have higher rates of fulfilling your authorizations. Like your percentages are going to be high. If your auth is going to be higher, if you have a bank of 1,000 hours, if you keep having turnover, you're never going to fill the bank. But if you wait a month, train someone properly, and then start filling it, you're going to fill it fast. You're going to actually fill more of it. that's a return on your investment in training. You maybe invested 2 weeks or a salary for 2 weeks into that person's training, but then you got it back in the number of hours that they stuck around for.
Yeah, and there's patience is a virtue.
Yes.
I'm terrible at it.
Me
And
too.
Josh is great because I'm like chasing shiny objects all the time. And I'm like, oh, here, let's start another company. Here, let's do that. But then there's this whole thing like, you're going to have to manage this, right? And what I try to be careful of when coaching somebody or teaching the courses, we get this entrepreneur part of your brain fired up. And you mentioned the ADHD executives you work with.
Yes.
ADHD people make excellent executives. Like when they learn how to harness that power,
Yeah.
they're awesome at it because they're professional shiny object chasers, right? That's what it's good. Like when we go into the foundation course, like we're firing up that entrepreneur visionary part of your brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you also, the next step is building the manager because you have the owner. All you have to do for that is fill out some paperwork and poof, you're a
Right.
business owner, right? The entrepreneur is your visionary.
Yeah.
And then way down the line, you have the clinician and the technicians on the billing side and finance. But often what also gets missed is that manager persona in that business owner. And the manager really needs to be there to control the urges of the entrepreneur and to instill patience and structure and organization for moving the entire company towards the CEO's vision. But here's one of the problems. If you get stuck in that entrepreneur CEO brain and you apply something to a system, if it's not working like the next day, we want to change everything. Let it sit, let it marinate for a minute. And you need to give these solutions a couple months, sometimes years, to really see that the full benefit from it. Well, you're saying return on investment. When you start a training program, when you start a new process or implementation, that return on investment might be fantastic, but it's not going to come to you overnight. And these are things where it's also your expectations when you bring in a consultant. I think consultants could probably do a better job of managing those expectations up front, but also as business owners, we need to manage our own expectations. And we need to understand that this is an investment that I'm making now that is not going to come back to me for a long time, because we're not looking at what we need to fix for next week. We're looking at what we need to fix for 3, 5, 10 years from now, and to get us into that position. And those little micro changes that you're making might not save the world in a day, but they're important. And you don't want to just keep changing things, right? You want to make a change, adjust, know what you had before so that you can adjust back in that direction if you need to. My original point was patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
Not a lot of us have it, but we have to train ourselves for it and not expect overnight return on investment.
So it's interesting because everything you're saying is very valid for the ABA world as well. And like when we approach our clients, so if you have a client who has severe problem behavior, you don't expect to put in an intervention and that tomorrow they're not going to have any severe problem behavior. You recognize that it's this like long journey. Sometimes you do it, and I'm sure this is the same where you do it and you're like, oh, like I had a kid, we did what's called response for our BCBAs who are listening. Response interruption and redirection, which is like for kids who engage in like flapping or vocal stereotypy or stimming, you interrupt the behavior and you get them to do something else. So he would have motor, he would actually like press his throat, which is damaging his vocal cords. So every time he did it, we would be like, all right, clap your hands, raise your arms. And he immediately became aggressive and like very aggressive. And we were like, okay, you got to switch that immediately. But for most kids, most of the time when you put in an intervention, it doesn't work overnight. And so to just be like, oh, today had the same rates or today was even worse, let's throw it all out. That would be, we look at trends as behavior analysts. We're not looking at each individual. We're not supposed to look at each individual data point. We're supposed to look at this overall trend. And okay, today was better. Yesterday was better. Today was a little bit worse. Tomorrow, overall, we're descending in a good way. We're going down, but it's slow. And it's variable and it's not perfect. And this more applies to BCBA owners than non-BCBA owners. But a lot of times we don't take the same principles that we apply to our clients to ourselves as business owners. And I think that where I come from, I literally look at everything from a behavior analytic perspective. It's like how my brain is wired to understand the baseline of the problem, identify the problem, create a goal, do an intervention, measure the outcome of the intervention is like my whole brain for everything I do.
I wonder,
yeah.
I wonder sometimes, I talk a lot about first principles, right? Like
Yeah.
almost, and this is, I don't know how much application of first principles there is in the behavior realm,
Yeah.
but in the engineering realm, it's number one. It's your North Star, right?
Yeah.
Just with any example, I hear all the time when I ask the question, why do you do it this way? And that's how we've always done it. Okay, but why? That's how I learned how to do it from my old boss. Okay, let's look at what your actual goal here is. Like, where
Right.
are you trying to get to? And this thing that you're doing, is it actually moving you toward your strategic objective, right? Is this thing that you are processing and doing in your systems and that you're utilizing an employee or two to get this thing done every month? Is this something that is actually helping you move in the right direction? And
Right.
that's that kind of first principles thinking. Like, what are the results of this process? What are the outputs that I'm getting? What do I expect from it? And often that's an ROI that isn't helpful. I hired a social media person. We've got 3,000 people on our local Facebook fan page, but we're still not getting clients. Like, okay, what do you care about how many likes you have on your business page? If you're not getting clients from there, there's another problem. So why are you spending $500-600 a month to get more likes when it's really not doing anything for your marketing? This little light bulb turns on. Oh, okay. Why don't we tweak some of this stuff or get rid of it? A lot of stuff just needs to be, I call it the Jenny Craig system for business. This is weight that you just need to get rid of. It's just dead weight, lose weight, and move on.
Yeah. And I find marketing such a good example, because if somebody is promising you like these big return on your investments immediately, like I have found as a business owner that networking is a far more valuable client retention tool than marketing. I do think there are things like providing free webinars, providing free trainings, marketing if you have an agency, going and making but you're making connections with like daycare centers or preschools or aftercare programs or whatever. Like all of that is more networking. And I find that tends to be more powerful, but also takes more time, where I'll get a phone call 6 months after I work with a daycare center that's, hi, so my kid goes to this daycare and they're about to kick him out because he's doing this thing. They gave me your name. Can you help? And they're more likely to become a client than somebody who finds me from, let's say, social media for my business personally. And I just think, but that takes time. They're not as common. Like that daycare might refer me like 4 people a year, but all 4 of them become clients.
Yeah. And that's what I tell our team all the time. At my part-time job where I run a big IT and cybersecurity company, I spend about 20% of my time there. The other 80% of my time is ABA Impact. But this company is actually like 20% of my time, maybe. But when I'm there, I'm constantly telling our team, what we do today is what we get paid for 3 to 6 months from now. So your success today came from work that you did 90 to 180 days ago. So we want to make sure that we're always preparing for 6 months from now. That's what we're working towards. That's what we're building. And that's the way it is in any business. And to your point, I would consider your networking part of your marketing. Like that's a necessary thing that you should have as part of your marketing plan. And it's funny. Last night I saw a Facebook ad from a company that said for ABA businesses, and it said your ABA therapy will get you 20 new clients in 90 days or you don't pay. And I'm thinking like, what is the angle here? Because there are a few companies that maybe need to generate a wait list, but I think most of it is just making sure that you establish your reputation, and so that someone else doesn't do it for you. Make sure that you put yourself on your Google business and stuff like that, but make sure that your phone number is correct and that you have your mission on your website and that people know who you are and that they can find you. At least have that much stuff in place. But the investments that we make in these different areas seem to be on the list of things I have to have before I get started, or the things that I have to exist. And spending money on an expensive website and spending money on marketing and Facebook ads is not something that is necessary for baseline operations when you're starting a business. So we also have to be careful about making sure that we know what areas we actually need to hire a consultant or an outsourced service provider in.
Yeah. And I think it's also tying it back to the visual that we're looking at right now is it something that is internal versus external? And is it something that I actually want to hire somebody to do? Like networking, you probably want to hire someone to be networking on behalf of your organization if you're not doing it yourself. Because you want somebody who's representing your organization, who knows your organization, who's invested in it. Like a networking and marketing consultant isn't going to establish the same relationships that somebody who works for you is going to establish. Whereas designing your website quickly, okay, hire someone to design your website for you. That's an external need. You don't need to hire a website designer on staff. And I think it is really important to distinguish the difference, because there are so many consultants who are like, oh, we'll get you 20 clients. And you're like, oh, that sounds wonderful. But
what kind of clients are they?
Are they the clients who match your mission? Are they also, I have so many questions about that, because also you got me 20 clients. Where are the staff that go with those clients?
Yeah.
Who's training the
staff?
staff?
Said we'll get you 20 RBTs in 90 days. You don't pay. I'm all about that. Tell me more.
I know. And but are you getting RBTs? Are you just finding people off the I don't know. I have so many questions. Like, how do you know that that feels so scammy to me and concerning.
I'm gonna fill up.
Let me know. Let me know how that goes, because that feels like, how is that even? I couldn't even get to build a system to go from 0 or 5 to 25 in 90 days. Feels untenable. And unless you had a really solid foundation in place to do something like that, I feel like that's like building like a 6-story house on a foundation meant for 1 story. And that you shouldn't be. That's a concern. You shouldn't be doing that. So that's a different issue. And if you don't know what your mission is, but you see that and you're like, oh, I can get my business started with this company, but like all they do is get you 20 clients and there's no supports in place for it, you're going to fail. So I think that's something really important to consider. I think we've talked a lot about these pieces, that like you want to have somebody who has the right background and experience for what you're looking for. Like you said, you don't want the HR person giving you billing advice. You don't want a lawyer giving you accounting advice, unless they're also an accountant. Making sure that their values and vision align with yours. I've worked with companies where, especially with like staff training things, where they bring me on and they think you're going to do it for us, right? You'll just train our staff for us. And it's no, my job is actually to teach you how to train your staff and to give you the resources and outline it all so that you can do it. But then also, as you develop as a company, you're now equipped to continue to build it out on your own. And so if your values are, I want somebody else to do it, you need to hire someone to do it. Because like I'm, as a consultant, I'm not aligned with that. My goal isn't to just do it for you. My goal is to teach you how to do it. I'm like very much like you catch a fish for a man, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. That's where my vibe is. If you have a consultant, if you want to hire somebody who's going to be on salary or who's going to be part-time for you, consulting for you on an ongoing basis for years, that's a must-have for you. You want to make sure that if their values, even just like when we respond to emails, how quickly we respond, like all these little things. Is it important to you that things work fast? Do you understand that do you want things to take time? Do you have a process? Like you want to make sure that all that's aligned and that you like feel good about the person you're working with. And then you also want to make sure how individualized it is to your level of involvement, of their level of involvement. I've worked with companies who will email me and be like, hi, can you hop on a call tomorrow? And it's nope, I am very clear. I will respond within 48 hours. I don't drop everything because I can't. That's just, cannot drop everything to jump on a call. If you need somebody who's going to do that's going to cost more money and be more individualized. And if you want that, then you're going to need to look for somebody who can provide you that level of involvement.
Yeah. Or if somebody's jumping on a call with you right away, they have a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
Which means they're not very busy. That's also a little bit, not a red flag, but a yellow flag.
Yeah. I will say one thing I did want to make sure I said in this, because like at some point I had to start my career and every consultant had to start their career somewhere. I don't think, and I guess like we talk about this, I think I cover this talking about what you do when you interview. A lot of things I saw said like only hire an experienced consultant. I have always come from I'm a self-starter, and I think this is me speaking from my own experience, that if nobody ever gave me a chance to do something, I would never have evolved into the experienced person that I am. And so I do think that there is space. You don't necessarily have to hire the most experienced consultant. Somebody who is new to consulting, but has experience. If you're looking like for a toilet training consultant, you want somebody who is a toilet training expert, but maybe learning how to consult to businesses. And you're gonna pay because they're new. You should pay the right level because they're new to consulting.
Sure.
But in order for them to become an expert consultant, they have to start with a client somewhere. And so I wouldn't say only hire somebody who is experienced in as a consultant, who's an experienced consultant. I would say hire somebody who has the right experience, whether it's like they were the biller for 10 different companies and they're an expert at billing. They have worked in HR for the last 20 years. They are an expert at HR. You want to hire somebody who is an expert at that, at what you are looking for them to do, not necessarily like the most experienced consultant.
And for the consultants watching this, people don't mind being tested, being a test subject.
Yeah.
And I always talk about like the governance, risk, and compliance platform that we use to help us. Like they're just a bunch of compliance nerds that run the software, do all that. When I signed on with that company, they were only like a year old.
Yeah.
And I got in on the ground floor, and we've been working with them for years now. But
Right.
we were able to help them shape their programs. We were able to help them develop out how they were doing things, how they were handling things. Plus, I got a really good price when I got in. And now that software, their entire service platform looks a lot like what I wanted it to be because I got it early. So if you're a consultant and you're talking to somebody, don't be ashamed of inexperience. We just did this with the last 6 months. We saw that people were missing the foundation structure systems part of their business. We wanted to help them develop out their organizational strategy. And I literally put together 36 pages of Word docs. And it was very messy and very difficult. But when we're talking to people, BCBA starting up or things were a mess, we're like, all right, so we have this system and we're working on it to add this into your ABA business to help develop it out and make it stronger. It's helping you think things through, divide and conquer, and build your own system so that you're moving in the direction that you have decided you're going to move in. And we did it for free for, 50 different companies and ran through it all. And it was funny because when you put it out there and then you're following up with people a month later, 2 months later, and they're crying on the phone. They're like, I didn't know. I didn't know that I could do things this way. Those people trusted us. They took up a lot of our time. We did a lot of things for free, but from all of that and the hundreds of businesses we helped before them, that's where our course came from. So it's not that you have to make money off of the first person that you deal with. You don't need to whack them for $7,500. And if you're in that position, get a job, make ends meet, build your portfolio of consulting clients, and then start developing that system out. I think consultants start their businesses off wrong and get themselves into positions where they're doing work maybe they shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
And,
That's could be a whole other topic.
Yeah, stepping over lines. Maybe it's something they think, I don't have a lot of experience in this, but I can probably handle it. Let's just go do it. And then things end badly.
Yes, I totally agree. I 100% agree. And then I think like you have a business owner who's not quite sure what they want and a consultant who's still figuring out what they're doing. And you get into a murky place where the vision is muddled, the progress is muddled. And so I do think it is like really important. If the more you are prepared as a business owner to know what to expect from the consultant, the easier it is to direct things in the way that you want it to go. And these are some of the questions. I don't necessarily need to go through all of them. There's also a handout that includes 25 questions to ask on interview when you're interviewing a consultant. And you should be interviewing consultants. You shouldn't just be like, yeah, great. Everything sounds great. Here's my $7,500. You should be figuring that out. And I think like one thing to speak to is the billing practices, is that you want to make sure you know what you are paying for. Are they billing hourly? If they're billing hourly, like my divorce attorney, are they billing every time they read an email from me? Is that being billed? My one email was 6 minutes, which is $700 or some ridiculous number. That's how attorneys work. You want to know that because you don't want to be surprised that like at the end of the month, you get like a $5,000 bill and you're like, what did you do with this time? You want to know exactly what they're billing for. Is it a monthly subscription? Is it a base package that's supposed to have a deliverable at the end of it? Is it like, again, back to the contractor, I paid you $10,000 and you built me a bathroom. Is that what you're looking for? Or is it that like you're paying them on an hourly basis? And if so, you also want to make sure, especially for these newer consultants, they should not be billing you for work that is then going to be recycled for all of their other organizations. So like I look at it when an organization comes to me and I haven't done something yet, I, in my head, think, what is individualized for this organization and what is going to be reused for other places? And if you're paying me hourly, I might bill an hour for it because that's customizing it to your organization. But I might spend 5 more hours on it, knowing that I'm going to get 10 more clients at some point that I'm going to bill an hour for. with that item, because it's not fair to the first person who comes on who needs that. Just because they're the first one who needs it doesn't mean they're going to be the only one who needs it, and doesn't mean that like my 10 hours spent on it should be billed directly to them and only them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is a hard one. I think that's like a tough one for consultants to do, but I really don't think, I don't know. I just don't think, like you said, like with the billing person who can like take and look at it and know within 10 minutes what the issues are. If they're still learning how to do that, it's like you should be billing for the time that it takes for you to do that fluently. And if you're not yet doing that fluently, then you're not billing them for your training and for your like, practice. Yeah.
You shouldn't be paying a consultant to build their system or educate themselves on something. And consultants from your side, remember, you're going to build this system, you're going to build this solution. And once it's done, you're going to be able to replicate that and make a higher profit margin off of your, for your time and your energy and your expertise going forward. I think most of that is wrapped up in the lack of confidence that what they're actually doing is really helpful. And we have some that won't even come on and do webinars, because if I come on and do a live stream, then everyone's just going to know what I do, and then they're going to have to do it themselves. And then they're going to be able to do it themselves. Like, that means that what you're doing doesn't have much value.
That's so true. If everyone can do it themselves for a 1 hour webinar, then
yeah, if we're going to do 30 minutes talking about it, and it's going to ruin your whole business because you can teach everything that you can give away all your value in 30 minutes, then what are you charging the $7,500 for in the first place?
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. Okay, so these are interview questions. Some red flags. I think we've talked about a lot of these, but if somebody has a vague resume, if you're like, or they have vague portfolio, or they're like, yeah, I'm really good at staff training. And you're like, okay, so give me some examples. And they're like, I've trained hundreds of people. And you're like, okay, but like, how? What are you doing? And they're like, oh, I focus on systems. Oh, we're using all those buzzwords. But what do you mean you're focusing on systems? If you're telling me you do staff training, then you're saying like, I'm going to establish a protocol for you so that all of your RBTs are following the same sequence. And we're going to start with the most important thing, like pairing. So just here it is. Like, it's super clear. You understand what you're getting. We've already talked a lot about misaligned values. I think if you're not in alignment, you should not be working with them. If there's not clear deadlines or scope, I think we've talked a lot about that one as well. Poor communication. So they're not responding to you. If you feel like the responses are incomplete. I worked with a company where they had another consultant, and the other consultant kept over-promising and then under-delivering. And so it was like a combination of a bunch of these flags where like they would say, oh, we're going to get you this and this. And then the business owner would follow up, and the person would say, oh, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get it next week. I'm so sorry. This week I was super busy. I feel like I operate in a space of nobody wants your excuse. Like, you can give an explanation, but nobody wants your excuse. Excuses aren't helpful. Apologies aren't helpful. Like, you want your actions to match your words and to match what you're saying. And so if you're constantly being like, oh, I'm sorry, if your consultant is always like failing to deliver and providing excuse after excuse, it's probably not the right fit for you. Because at the end of the day, yeah, maybe you like them, maybe it's nice, maybe they have good aligned values, but you're running a business. You can't just keep waiting on them while they like figure out their car or their kids or their whatever. And you can have compassion, but you might want to say, hey, come back to me when you're ready. Come back to me when your head is on and you're able to focus on this. And then I think like one other big problem that you mentioned also with the billing, the idea you train one person and then they quit. You don't want a consultant who's creating a dependency on the consultant that's like ingratiating themselves into your business. Because if you have somebody who you can't run the business now without them as a consultant, they're no longer consulting. They're part of your business. And so if them and their billing person are the only two people who know your billing system, and the billing person quits and now you're dependent on the consultant, that's a red flag. Because now you need to go back and pay that consultant $7,500 again. And to me, that's a problem. I don't think that they should be doing that. The goal of a consultant is that they're enriching your business and supporting you and elevating you so that you don't need them forever. Unless
furniture.
Exactly. Unless it's, again, like a coach, which again, even in a coaching role, I don't want to be coaching someone forever. Although I guess like baseball teams always have coaches. So we're going to think on that one. I'm like, there is always a coach. But I guess like as a CEO at the end of the day, like you should be the coach. But if you need coach training and you need to learn how to do it yourself, you might have somebody who's mentoring you or coaching you first. And the goal is to fade all of that out. If it's, oh, now suddenly I can't live without this person and I need to make every decision together, you've created a dependency. It's not sustainable. Or you want to hire the person. Okay, how are we measuring success? We're like, moving along. So this actually, measuring success, comes back to thinking about it for behavior analysts. That whole idea that we operationalize everything for our clients and we're data driven for our clients. So we want to be data driven for our business. And so we want to make sure that we are defining our goals clearly of I'm bringing in a consultant because I want to have a smooth billing process that recoups lost money and creates a system so that we're not going to keep losing money and that our billing team is trained and this person can leave and we're done. Those are my clear goals. And then you're going to look at what your identify measurable outcomes. Like, what are those measurable outcomes? We got our money back. There are fewer delays. Like, what are the outcomes that we're looking to see? How are we going to know that this was successful? And then you're going to pick a tracking method that aligns with your measurable outcomes. So to Derek's point earlier, if you get 30,000 likes and you're using likes as a tracking method, but your measurable outcomes is the number of clients you have, those are not, your tracking method does not align with the outcomes that you're looking for. And so you want to make sure that your everything you're doing all comes back to your main goal. I want more clients. My measurable outcome is that like I'm going to have 20% more clients in the next 2 quarters, like in the first half of next year or whatever. And then my tracking method is going to be, I'm going to look at the number of intakes that we get and the number of clients who sign on and the number of conversions that we have and then how long our clients stay for. And those are the things I'm tracking. I'm not tracking my social media to see how many clients I get. And then you want to create graphs. Let's make graphs. That's what we do in ABA. We make visual displays, whether it's a pie chart or a bar graph or a line graph. How are you keeping track? And a consultant may be able to help you with this, or you may want to have someone designated in your organization who's doing these things so that you're making sure that you're getting your value out of the consultant. And then you're building feedback loops. So you're saying like, hey, we hired you because we want to grow 20% and we've only grown, it's been 4 months and we've only grown 5%. Look at our graphs. Here's where it is. What's going on? And the consultant, to our point, what we've said is like, consultant might say, we've laid all the groundwork. And what I see when I work with companies of your size is that it takes about 4 months for this to really start picking up. And so please give me another month and then we're going to start seeing progress. You want to have those conversations, those feedback loops, but you need the data to have the feedback loops. And then you're establishing accountability, because if you have your feedback loops and you have your accountability, you're able to know if it's working or not and holding them accountable and then saying, hey, if this isn't working, what are we going to do that's different? This is your job. You said that you're going to bring us 20% more people. What are you doing now? We don't have 20% more people and it's month 4. What are we doing? What's the plan? Which brings me to what happens if there's no progress? What to do? You want to look into the source of the issue. And we spoke about this earlier, like what happens if you bring in a consultant to do staff training, but you don't have a foundation of what your clinical department is. You don't have a business plan yet. You don't have a vision yet. Your source might be that you're missing prerequisite skills. So you want to figure that out. And then you want to reset expectations with the consultant. So a good consultant is going to say, like me as a consultant at some point, I would say, hey, you're missing these things. And I just did this with a business recently where they brought us in for Supervision Reimagined for staff training and like to help with their staff training, but they have a lot of like clinical needs. And we said, you need to hire people in specific positions. You are asking us to do things that are outside of the contract that we agreed on. And we can either offer a contract, which we don't really want to do because it's outside of we're capable of doing it, but we don't do that. I do it privately, but that's in the scope of what Gabby and I do. Or you can look to hire certain positions and we can help you with like job descriptions and what you're looking for in that scope and hiring someone, but you actually need someone to be doing the things that are missing. That's not in our scope. And you want to make sure you're resetting those expectations with your consultants and you're not just doing it on your own. And then evaluating the fit. Is this still working? Or have I hired somebody to manage severe problem behavior, but actually like I'm having a problem with staff turnover and the severe problem behavior isn't the issue. We know how to handle the severe problem behavior, but the fact that staff keep turning over and so we keep having to retrain people on the severe problem behavior is the real root of the problem. And so this person isn't a fit. We need to find someone to handle our high turnover problem. And then modify the intervention. So if you do decide it is the right fit, like this is the right person, but we're not getting the results we expected. What are they going to be doing differently? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what they're going to do differently to support our organization. And let's set those goals, those new goals and those new objectives and saying, or I guess it's the same goals, but let's look at the goal and say, how are we going to meet this goal in a different way? It's like taking a different route to get to the same place. this route is blocked off. It's not working for whatever reason. So how are you pivoting as a consultant? How are you helping me as a consultant in this? We're like, I know we have a lot, but I think contracts is like very quick because it's outside of my scope other than knowing what to look for.
I just want to make sure that you have in there what, like you said, your deliverables. What are you putting in and what are you getting back? And that needs to be well defined. And have your lawyer look at it, copy it, drop it into ChatGPT, talk to ChatGPT about it, make sure that you have all the right things in there.
Yes. And there's also other pieces too, I would say, for contracts. But again, you want a lawyer, like what's happening with intellectual property? So anything that they give you, is it their property? Is it your property? What if they make something specific to your company? Are you allowed to disseminate it? Are you allowed to sell it? How does that, are you only allowed to use it in one center? Like, how does all of that work? Because I think a lot of people don't think about intellectual property.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's an area you have to be careful with. I think a lot of business owners should be thinking a lot about their own intellectual property as well. When you're developing out your forms, your systems, and your paperwork, when I take people into the systems course, their documentation formatting has a copyright line at the bottom of it. There's this practice of people working at a company, photocopying a bunch of paperwork and walking out the door with it and thinking they just have a business now.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, you see your forms and documents on sale on Instagram for $40 a form or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, everybody needs to be thinking about their intellectual property all the time. And it is part of your transaction when you're working with anyone.
Yes.
Had to get pretty deep into that, into the Odyssey with you're coming on from our side. You're taking these downloads. You're using this stuff to build your business. This is for your business. And it's not really useful out of context anyway. What we don't want is a consultant coming on, downloading all the lesson downloads, and then going out and saying, oh, I have all their stuff. It's not going to actually help anyone, first of all. And second of all, you want to protect the people who could be victimized by something like that. You want to be able to stop it. And you want to make sure that when you're, like you said, when it's someone else's potential intellectual property and it's coming in, what are you allowed to do with it? On a note there, intellectual property, copyrights, that kind of stuff. We had one of our clients got hit with copyright infringement because they had a picture on their website they downloaded from the GoDaddy site builder stock photo library, put on their website. I built the website on GoDaddy. That's the only place I got any of the pictures from. And she had done it like 2 years ago. It's not like it's this long ages ago, but there's no logs or anything at GoDaddy. So she's going to have to pay the lawyer's demand for $2,000. But yeah, be careful with intellectual property.
Yeah. And it's tough. I worked in an organization where everything was copyrighted. And then somebody I worked with tried to take it all and they sued him for that. And it makes sense because he was just like, I'm just going to use all these data sheets and this is all mine now. And they had copyrighted everything that they'd done very clearly. And I think even when something's not clearly copyrighted, it's still, you can prove that you're the one who originated it. It is yours. And you want to make sure that you're protecting that for yourself and for other people and that you're respecting other people's intellectual property because you could get in hot water, like you said. I think another important one is also the terms of the agreement, because what happens if they're not delivering? Are you like trapped into paying this person for 6 months? If like it's not, even if it's not going well, like how do you turn? You want to make sure that there is a way that if your needs as a company are not being met, you can end the agreement without also necessarily being financially liable to this company, to this consultant for an extended period of time. Because if they're not doing their job, you shouldn't be continuing to pay them. But oftentimes, like, people build it. And my philosophy is very much at will and values based. And so if this isn't working, I don't want to continue to take money from you. And I don't want to continue to work from you because I don't want to waste anybody's time with a relationship that's not effective. And so that's where I come from. But a lot of people create contracts that are like, we're locked, like the Camel Company, we're locked in for 2 years. You're stuck with Fios for 2 years. Like you don't want a consultant that you're stuck with for 2 years.
Yeah.
If you don't know.
We actually just witnessed this like a few months ago where someone felt that they were stuck, and don't be afraid to hold the consultants accountable. If they're not meeting the agreement that they came in to help with. Like she didn't want to fire her. Like it had to get really bad before she fired. That was because she had made this agreement. She was like, I don't want to cancel the contract, but she wasn't meeting the agreement.
Yeah. I feel like I learned this from my divorce is that you want to make sure, because that's also an agreement, right? You have an agreement when you get divorced. It's all legal. This is legal stuff. You want to make sure everything's clearly outlined, because when there is a shade of gray, and if it just says will assist with selling your business, if that's the scope of the project and then they're not getting a lot done, it's a lot harder to get out of that contract. because you can't say you are not meeting this. They could say, I sent you an email last week. I am working towards that. Sure, I'm working towards it. No, we're still in this contract. If you terminate the contract, you still owe me 6 months. And like, I think the clearer it is, the more protected you are as a business owner. And you don't want to get stuck in that, like where you can't terminate it if it's not working. I feel like that's the biggest piece. Like people get screwed because they're just like, yeah, I want Central Reach or whatever. I don't want to bash Central Reach. But that's the first name that came to mind. But yeah, I want this because I don't even know their business practices. I want this thing. And now I'm stuck in it for 2 years. Now I'm stuck with it because I didn't think this through and I just signed something. I think that's really important. And then some red flags, like if you can't terminate the contract. Again, cable company. What did I have recently? It was really hard to terminate something recently where I had to call, like to sign up, you press a button, and to cancel it, you have to call them and go through 17 menus. And I was like, this is not cool. It's like quitting the gym or something. They make it hard. Vague terms, collateral opportunities. So if they're going to profit more off of like consulting for your business, that's like to me a red flag. If they're like, oh, everything we make for your business is also mine and I'm going to be selling it, also feels not great. If they also have a lack of understanding of our field, no matter who they are, I think they should understand, like you guys understand the ABA field. You understand the general, like that we work with people, that we work with children, that there's this tiered model that exists for the most part. Like if you don't understand the basics of the field, you can't consult. You can't be an HR consultant who doesn't understand ABA and consult to ABA companies. I feel like it's not going to work. If somebody says, we're going to get you 20 clients, and I think like a lot of those, we're going to get you, maybe they consulted in like therapy companies, we're going to get you 20 clients. It's a lot easier to get like somebody off the street to do 1 hour therapy session for a LCSW than it is to get somebody to sign up for 20 hours of ABA as a client. It's like a much slower process. There's so much more involved to do ABA than there is to get a new client for one private practice therapist, for instance. And I feel like if they don't understand, like also the sensitivity required in our field, that we're working with a vulnerable population, there's a lot of confidentiality involved. There's a lot, like all of those pieces. If you don't get that, then they should not be consulting for you. And then I've seen people where they come for our big company and then we're going to assign you someone. Like, you met with me and then I'm going to assign you a different person. And no, you want to know who you're working with, because again, that values alignment. If you're going to be assigned a random like case manager in the company, it's probably not going to work out. And I think that's it. That's where we are. We're done. We did it.
I think it's important if you're going to spend the money, and it's not just the money that you're investing, it's your time. And opportunity cost exists. When you're looking at what you could be doing versus what you are doing, that's something that has to be considered. Nobody's going to come in and wave a magic wand over your business and make it look like you want it to look. It's an incremental thing. You're going to have to work on these different functional areas of your business, the processes within them. And to your point, they need to be focused on something. They need to have a specialization in a specific area. And if they have that specialization, they also need to understand enough about ABA therapy to really help you with it. No, I've met people who do consulting that are really great in ABA and other fields as well. I like to see something with pediatric healthcare. There's some certain areas that are pretty well aligned with ABA. Like in our case, we're doing compliance and technology, HIPAA, right, technology, that kind of stuff. But the fact that we're dealing with ABA companies all the time, we understand the difference between in-home and clinic-based and right, school. These are 3 totally different businesses with very different infrastructures and models. And you want to make sure that they can talk intelligently about your business specifically, but also that you can talk intelligently about that and tell them what you're doing, where you're going, and why. Nicole, yeah, great talk. Thanks for investing all this time.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do it. And hopefully it helps how people can find me. I tend to work with people who also work with other consultants or other organizations, because I come in at the beginning, like, what kind of business do you want? Oh, you want that type of business? These are the people you need to help you. This is where you need to go to get help, where I'm like helping people find their vision. And so if people are interested in that, I'll just share this. So this is how to get in touch with me. If you're startup development, staff training, especially solo practice mentorship, because that's like a really niche space, this is how to get in touch with me. Follow me on all my different accounts on Instagram. Try to keep myself pretty busy.
Thank you once again, Nicole. We'll do another one soon.
Yep. Sounds good.
Thanks everybody.
Guys.
You're already doing the work. investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.